Why do they edit Fight Club in China and show Batman movies for free? And what about independent media there? Let's take a look. The Chinese Communist Party keeps finding new areas of society to bring under its control. Last time, we talked about the problem of the Uyghur minority and the unique IT sector. Now let's see how Beijing is launching a large-scale, multi-million-dollar program to promote party ideology and regulate the entertainment sector. In recent years, the Chinese Communist Party has actively engaged in propaganda. Having grown wealthy thanks to the market economy, Chinese citizens no longer show the same unity with the party line as before, but have become increasingly active consumers of Western goods and works of Western culture. Therefore, the Chinese authorities have taken on a new task to bring the most significant economic sectors most significant to the country's citizens under control. Last year was especially absurd from this point of view. The party took control of the Chinese IT and online education sectors. But the Communist Party didn't stop at attacking technology companies. After all, the entertainment industry in China made about $357 billion in profit in 2021, and by 2025, it will grow to $437 billion. It's no surprise that popular shows, movies, and Chinese people's leisure time have already come into focus. Look, these are New Era Civilization Practice Centers. These are unique Chinese cultural centers and leisure centers. Since 2018, more than 100,000 such organizations have been built in China. From 2018 to 2021, regional authorities in China spent more than $110 million on this large-scale project. The program of the centers is quite diverse, ranging from political information lessons to all kinds of events. For example, the program of the Guangzhou centers includes culinary master classes on local Cantonese cuisine and lectures on the latest technologies in the field of drones. In one of the Shanghai centers, they study the role of the city in key historical events of the Chinese Communist Party. And here there are also yoga classes, a cappella singing, as well as a free screening of Christopher Nolan's 2008 action film, The Dark Knight, which was included in the category of urban education. And now let's return to these so-called New Era Civilization Practice Centers. Guangzhou has attracted about 140 million volunteers. They conduct lessons and workshops, travel to remote areas to collect folklore, and also teach rural residents financial literacy and provide a wide range of services. At first glance, these are ordinary leisure centers where you can learn to cook, watch a movie for free, do yoga, or figure out how modern technologies work. But the motives of the authorities, who invest so many resources into these centers, are quite clear. The main goal of these centers is to shape new citizens with new habits, as well as to promote Chairman Xi Jinping's ideas about a specific Chinese socialism. As Chinese people grow wealthier, they generally show less interest in politics, including party activities. On the one hand, this is a sign of a stable society, but on the other hand, it cannot help but worry the authorities. In order to gain influence, the authorities use popular trends as a new format of propaganda. The Chinese authorities have also developed other mechanisms through which they try to convey their ideology not only to the country's residents, but to the whole world. One of these methods is the editing of foreign films. At the end of January 2022, the iconic 1999 American film Fight Club was added to the popular Chinese streaming platform Tencent Video, but it was replaced with a version more suitable from the perspective of the Chinese authorities. In the original version, Edward Norton's character kills his imaginary alter ego, Tyler Durden, who had organized terrorist attacks on bank buildings, and then witnesses the explosions. In the new ending, the explosions were not shown to the viewers. Instead, before the credits, a message appeared stating that the police uncovered the plot, arrested the criminals, and sent Durden to a psychiatric hospital. Thus, the cult film by David Fincher, based on the novel by the equally famous writer Chuck Palahniuk, suddenly became 11 minutes shorter and ended with a happy ending. Censors reportedly found the ending, where authorities neither win nor restore order, unacceptable for Chinese audiences. The change to the film's ending led to a surge of bewilderment in foreign media. What was even more surprising was that soon after, the streaming platform restored David Fincher's original ending. Such leniency from Chinese censorship is rather rare. However, foreign sex scenes.
Фильм возвращать не стали.
Of course, Fight Club is not the only foreign film censored by the Chinese authorities. China has long been influencing films, not only within the country, but also around the world. And that's not surprising, since the PRC is one of the most attractive markets for foreign films. Until 2020, China ranked second in box office revenue after the US and Canada. However, in 2021, China surpassed the US and took first place. In recent years, major releases have been making more money in China than in America. Back in 2013, Xi Jinping stated that it was necessary to find new ways to tell China's story well. Since then, in order to gain access to the lucrative Chinese market, American filmmakers have had to avoid certain topics, such as sex, LGBTQ+ issues, crime, violence, or any depiction of China that does not meet the standards of the CCP. Films that could pose a threat to national security, harm national interests, or violate the country's territorial integrity are not allowed. Given the appeal of the Chinese market, some foreign studios make changes to their films themselves to please Chinese regulators. As a result, some of the most famous Hollywood films exist in several versions, one for the world and another for China. For example, in the 2012 James Bond film Skyfall, censors demanded the removal of a scene where a Chinese security guard is killed, as well as references to sex work and police torture. China, meanwhile, holds a very strong position, since its film industry has now reached a level where it can easily do without Hollywood productions. Most of the box office revenue in theaters comes from Chinese films, not foreign ones. That's why now Western producers and directors are more interested in China than China is in the rest of the world. The Chinese authorities not only show their citizens the right kind of movies, but also tighten control over private media. In October 2021, China's main economic planning body, the National Development and Reform Commission, published a draft ban on private news media. It states that media not controlled by the government cannot gather or distribute news within China. The bans include private investments in news agencies, including media, publishing houses, and broadcasting companies. Soon, only state-run media may remain in China. The Foreign Correspondents Club of China, which the authorities consider an illegal organization, released a report based on its research stating that press freedom in China is decreasing at a dizzying pace. And of course, control over the IT sector. Back in 2014, Beijing began closely monitoring the impact of American sanctions on Russia. So when the first large-scale U.S. trade sanctions hit China's economy in 2017, it was fairly well prepared for them. And although the American sanctions, which deprived leading Chinese companies of the ability to purchase or manufacture chips and other components for IT products using imported equipment, revealed an unacceptable level of dependence on Western countries in the field of high technology for Beijing, Beijing will draw conclusions and make counter-moves out of fear of falling behind the U.S. In key areas such as 5G artificial intelligence and quantum computing, Beijing requires national technology companies to act as a single team. In fact, these are disciplinary measures aimed at uniting businesses under the banners of the authorities. What is the disciplinary effect? For example, in the pressure on the largest companies that were planning to go public. About a year ago, the owner of the TikTok company, ByteDance, postponed its plans to go public for an indefinite period after a confidential conversation with representatives of the People's Bank of China. Earlier, Jack Ma's Ant Group, which owns China's largest digital payment platform Alipay and serves about 1 billion users in China alone, faced similar difficulties. In October 2020, the authorities forced the company to abandon what would have been the largest IPO in world history and fined it $2.8 billion for illegal activities, without specifying any details. And Didi Group, the main Chinese taxi and car-sharing aggregator, came under regulatory criticism immediately after its IPO, and the company's app was removed from users' smartphones in China. The bans on holding IPOs are driven by the authorities' desire to prevent manipulation of stock prices, which could destabilize the country's macroeconomic situation. After going public, Chinese antitrust authorities began focusing on data. They are concentrating their attention on dozens of IT companies involved in data storage. They have been instructed to conduct internal audits and correct business practices that restrict competition. And most importantly, they must tighten the rules for handling users' personal data to prevent it from leaking abroad. They believe that allowing American companies access to information about the behavior and habits of Chinese users creates risks. The U.S. will gain the ability to better understand domestic political processes in China and to predict specific actions by the country's authorities. And as the cherry on top, back in June 2017, an unprecedented law on national intelligence was adopted, something never seen before in global practice. It requires all Chinese citizens and companies to cooperate with intelligence community institutions in protecting the sovereignty and national interests of the state. Here's another telling detail. In the spring of 2022, in response to a new outbreak of disease, the authorities took measures that are recognized worldwide as unprecedented in their severity. In Shanghai, a single positive PCR test result is enough to take a 2-year-old child away from their mother or to euthanize pets. This is called a zero-tolerance policy. Parents separated from their children can't get any information about them for several days. People have their apartment doors sealed so they don't break the isolation rules. Food is delivered to them by couriers, but they just can't keep up with the flow of orders. As a result, the residents locked inside shout out of their windows. And often it's not even that they're outraged, but that they're starving. And some people are even catching fish like this using a drone. That's how Chinese authorities operate. It took control over national IT giants, surrounded ordinary citizens with attention and care from all sides, protects them from unnecessary information, chooses suitable movies for them, and teaches them financial literacy. And if necessary, it can even lock them inside their apartments. How effective and useful do you think these methods are? Would you like to live like that? Let us know what you think in the comments. That's all for today. See you in the next episode.